money, fame, power. These are all things associated with celebrities within the world, especially of Hollywood. But what many people don't know is that there is a fair amount of these celebrities with a very dark and depressing past. So this video is to point out those pasts, to show what some of these actors went through, and to show it's even more impressive that they're here now, still this successful. What's going on, everybody? This is Brian from MediaViral. This is 11 different celebrities and their dark pasts explained. So, if you guys do have been enjoying this video, please do leave a like down below, comment, and subscribe, as well as to turn on notifications to be notified every time I upload a new video for MediaViral. So the first celebrity we're going to start with is Charlize Theron. She is an absolutely massive Hollywood star, and it's multiple reasons. One, she is a very good actor, and number two, she's extremely beautiful. So when you combine great acting with great beauty, you're gonna be successful no matter what. But she does have a dark past that she's had since her childhood. She grew up in the Gauteng province, and she had to deal with a poor father, to say the least, who would threaten her. He was an alcoholic, and it was threatening her with physical abuse. And, you know, what happens with a lot of these situations is it starts off with, you know, maybe minor physical abuse, but sometimes they'll just evolve. And that's when this guy started physically assaulting his wife. Her mother shot and killed her husband, and this is because he was attacking her after one of his fits of a drunken rage. Luckily, though, it was ruled to be a self-defense by the judge, so the mother did not have to face any charges. And honestly, in my opinion, that's completely fine. You are allowed to defend yourself, but thankfully, Charlize Theron went through therapy as an adult, and she has gotten through all of this, and now look at her now. Extremely, extremely successful. The next one is Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson had his father disappear from his life back in the 60s, when Woody was only 7 years old. And this is because his father, Charles, was a high member of an organized crime unit and was a hitman for mobsters. Now, his father would eventually get caught after murdering a Texas grain dealer in the year of 1973, but he would be released years later. But eventually, Woody would try and make amends with his father, and he would visit him in jail from time to time. If you realize your father is a hitman, has been murdering people for hire, and you're a kid, it's not gonna be a great thing for your mental state. So it still is a dark past that Woody Harrelson has overcome. Next is Ringo Starr. Now, Ringo Starr almost died when he was a kid. That's because he had appendicitis, and yeah, he barely survived. He was 6 years old. If you don't know, appendicitis is like an infection of your appendix. It's actually somewhat surprisingly common in the United States, or just in general, and usually you just get surgery and you're fine. His was so bad, and I'm sure medical technology was not as well good as it is now back then, so he had to stay in the hospital for an entire year before he was allowed to leave. That would be absolutely terrible. I cannot even imagine that. Just imagine how much that can stunt your growth as a child. You get to stay in a hospital bed for a year. You aren't going to interact with as many people your age, so you're not going to be a social butterfly. You're probably not going to get the education you need. So that was crazy, and yet Ringo Starr becomes a part of the Beatles. And the Beatles, basically, they're the epitome of success in the music industry. Now, Lady Gaga, I remember in middle school, it was like, oh, she's a hermaphrodite, she's weird. But now she's like this babe, and she puts out good music. Well, I've always actually kind of liked her music, but she's a freaking babe. But yeah, she has a dark past as well. And this one's pretty graphic, but she revealed that she actually was raped when she was 19 years old by a man that was well older than her. And after this, she actually suffered from PTSD, which is actually pretty common for victims of any sort of sexual assault, especially if you felt you had no power whatsoever. You will feel a sense that it's just going to linger, and that's where you get PTSD. So Lady Gaga did have to go through a lot of mental and physical therapy to get over it. She even wrote a song to help her deal with this occurrence, and this was the song Swine. Now Lady Gaga doesn't use this attack, this sexual assault, this rape, to define her overall. She's overcome it, and now she's one of the most successful women in the music industry, and that's just an amazing story. Next one, Keanu Reeves, one of my favorite dudes, one of the best actors right now. He can do so much. He's got range. He can be an action hero. He can be a villain. He can play in a drama. He can do so much. He can do comedic roles. I just saw the trailer for SpongeBob, and he plays I don't even know what those are called. Like a ball of dust that rolls across the desert. He can do anything, but he had a really rough life. When he was only 3 years old, his father abandoned the family home. And then, just a bit later, he would lose his best friend to a drug overdose. And then, to make matters worse, 6 years later, when Reeves was doing very well with the success of The Matrix, his girlfriend, Jennifer Syme, the pregnancy did not go well. In the final stages of pregnancy, they lost their daughter. Even worse, 18 months later, his girlfriend dies in a car accident. Can you imagine that? Your father leaves you, your best friend dies, your daughter dies in the end of the pregnancy, and then the love of your life dies 18 months later. That is a lot to go through. Up next is Chelsea Handler. When she was only 10 years old, her older brother, which she had a great relationship with, passed away. And basically he was hiking and he fell 80 feet off a cliff and sadly did not make it through. A lot of people know what it's like to lose a family member, and it can really drag you down. But Chelsea Handler was able to push through and succeed. Samuel Jackson had a father that he never knew. He only met him twice, and his dad was an alcoholic. And this is something that I did not know at all before researching this video, but Samuel L. Jackson has a conviction for unlawful confinement, which is kind of like kidnapping, but it's not really moving them, like you're just making them, you're basically trapping them somewhere. And that is because it was Martin Luther King Jr.'s father. He held him hostage at Morehouse College. He was pissed off with the assassination of Martin Luther King, and him and a group of friends, probably colleagues as well, and they went to the college board of trustees and illegally confined them in there and held them hostage, demanded reform of the school, and MLK Sr. was a member of the college board of trustees. He got a second-degree felony for that, but the school did change its policies, so it does show that action, political action, does work, even if there are consequences. Now, Robert Downey Jr. kind of gets a bad rap for his past, and like, oh, it's all his fault, but, you know, it seems to maybe be a lot of his father's fault. See, his father, Robert Downey Sr., he was a filmmaker, very famous one. That's kind of how RDJ got a start. He was giving his son, RDJ, marijuana when he was just 6 years old. And then RDJ would say that he's always surrounded by drugs, and his own father used drugs as a way to bond together. You're introducing drugs to a 6-year-old, and remember, that was marijuana to a 6-year-old, and when it says drugs, it probably means other, more potent, more powerful, more illicit drugs than marijuana. It's hard to just shit on Robert Downey Jr. for a lot of stuff that happened in his past when he was raised to be like that. We have to remember, guys, you are who your parents are, who you are, who raises you. You become them. They mold you into people. And if you are molded to do drugs at a young age, you're gonna become an addict. RDJ says he was hooked at the age of 8. Finally, after years of being an addict, Robert Downey Jr. was able to kick his habits through a bunch of different things. And thanks for that, because we have great films like Sherlock Holmes, like the MCU, the entire MCU. Cannot imagine anybody else playing Iron Man. And people say, oh, Tom Cruise. No, miss me with that. RDJ was the perfect Iron Man. I don't think anybody can surpass that. So Oprah Winfrey is the next, and she had a rough life. She had physical and sexual abuse from family members. Like, physical and sexual abuse is bad enough, but when your own family, your own kin does that to you, it's even worse. It's just because those people they're supposed to trust and protect you. And that led to a pregnancy at the age of 14. but that pregnancy would lead to death after a few weeks after the birth. And, of course, as we all know from what she has done now, she was able to break free from this broken cycle and was able to find and live with her father. This led to huge progression and development for her, leading her to be the mogul of media that she is now. Jim Carrey, he was actually poor when he was younger, which it's a cool to see rags to riches stories. His father lost his job when he was young, so their lives changed for the worse, and they had to basically live with no steady income, and they even lived in a van at one point. Jim Carrey would then drop out of high school, and he worked as a janitor to help his family out. He would then try and become a comedian, but his family wouldn't really support his dreams, which, I mean, becoming a comedian at first is a very slow and not very profitable process. It takes a while. But once the family got back on their feet, Jim Carrey moved to Los Angeles to pursue acting and comedy, and, of course, we already know what happens next. He becomes one of the greatest comedians, one of the greatest comedy actors of all time. I love Jim Carrey. Now, a lot of his recent stuff I don't really like, but a lot of his older stuff I think is really, really good. Now, similar to RDJ, Drew Barrymore was a child star and, had a really, really rough childhood as she was introduced to drugs at a very young age. When she was just 11 years old, she was already addicted to alcohol and then later become addicted to cocaine, which, when you're 11 years old and you're addicted to two substances that are very bad for you, you don't have a bright future, but that doesn't mean that there isn't light at the end of the tunnel. She would actually take an attempt on her life later. Thankfully, she would survive, and then through a lot of long process, she would become the actress that she is now today. Like, I remember 50 First Dates is one of my favorite movies of all time. I loved her in that film. So yeah, she really did build up herself from that, and it makes you think, guys, just because you see somebody's alcoholic or addicted to drugs, don't always blame them. Most of the times it's because their parents were like that, and their parents let them do that or helped them do that, in Robert Downey Jr.'s case. So yeah, guys, this is it for the video. Let me know your thoughts down below. Who had the darkest past? And yeah, just let me know. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hope you guys all have an amazing day.